I grew up, for example, being told to know your place. Things like that aren't for you. And you believe it for too long. I think humour is so important to the workplace culture because, first of all, I'm not rewriting the wheel here. Like, everybody has had that sort of sense of dread of the Sunday night. I've got to go into work on Monday morning, and just off the back of having a lovely weekend where they have spent the weekend having a laugh with their family. They might have been to the pub or to a party with their friends, and at the weekend you're having a laugh. And I feel like it should carry on into the workplace. And I think, by having that sense of fun, even in a corporate environment, you can still, I think sometimes when people say having fun, they think it takes away from professionalism. And I don't think that's true. I think by instilling fun, having a laugh, seeing through that you can get through maybe difficult challenges in the workplace with a bit of camaraderie, I think it makes everyone work better because, a happy employee is an efficient employee. I really think that. I think every time I have done an excellent job, and I've worked in a supermarket, I've worked for the NHS, I've worked in production, and every job that was the best jobs were the ones where we also had a laugh together. I think for me, social mobility is such an important conversation because, I grew up, for example, being told to know your place. Things like that aren't for you. And you believe it for too long that it sort of gets you behind everyone else, and it does hold you back. And I think you should be encouraged to strive. I'm someone that grew up on that whole, sort of the American TV shows where if you see something you want, go and get it. And I think a British mentality is more like, sort of stay in your lane, don't cause any bother. And I disagree with that because by seeing people and also allowing people to tell their stories of where they came from, me and my family, we grew up on food banks. And, since then I've hosted shows. Like I say, I've done the biggest comedy show on TV, like the Apollo. I'm currently in a Channel 5 comedy drama, the Madame Blanc Mysteries. And that shouldn't have been for me. And I think it's really important that we do talk about it because the only way people will know that they can move up the social ladder is by letting them hear stories that they're familiar with, and that they're, the one thing we really need to represent, we're getting better at representing race, LGBT rights. And I think one of the things we really need to also include in that is class. You should let people know that where you start out doesn't need to be where you have to end. And I think sometimes, it's been thrown to me in the workplace where when I've been really striving towards something and literally like working later hours, when I've got home doing more work on something, and the word desperate has been used to me, whereas the word determined has been thrown to my middle-class colleagues. And I think sometimes it's just about language and letting people know, like, just because someone's trying to better themselves, I really think we should encourage it. And especially in Britain, I think, especially what I've learned through social media, which I think is a fantastic tool when used right, is that Britain is one of the last countries that has a class issue. I think businesses can create an inclusive workplace culture sort of just by listening to everyone. Let people not feel afraid to speak up and tell their story. I think that is, the the best bit of advice really is allow someone to come into work. And yes, you should have to be professional. I'm not taking away from the fact that this is still the workplace, you're paid to do a job, but at the same time, you should be able to go to work and be your full authentic self. Like, I shouldn't have to put on more of an RP accent, for example, to highlight that I'm educated. You know, I am educated. I've got a first-class degree in French, of all things. And yeah, I have a really strong Mancunian accent. So for me, I've been denied jobs, and openly, because they go, oh, we don't think Stephen's quite right for that. You know, we need someone that's got more of a grasp of general knowledge, that's maybe a bit more educated, stuff like that. I have actually been told that. And I think it's because, you know, I am a gay man, I am slightly camp. Some of you may be thinking very camp. And I have a very northern accent, that sometimes that distracts from the fact that I'm educated. And I think that has sometimes played a part in me holding myself back, because when you feel like, oh, well, they see me this way, you just sort of let people, when we have to get back to the place of going, we are all layered. None of us are just one thing. Whereas I think sometimes the workplace can be guilty of going, everyone needs to fit into this box. Who are you according to this box? Which age box do you take? What gender box do you take? What sexual orientation do you take? And I don't think life is that simple. So I think by allowing people just to come in, be themselves, celebrate themselves, speak how they speak, while still doing a good job for you and your company, I think it's the best way to get the most out of people and to make inclusivity just work. Because I think people talk about inclusivity and representation and yet don't know how to go about it and make it more, everything more of a thing than it needs to be.